Welcome back, my fellow human-animal hybrids, to the Triple S Variety channel. I'm your host Triple S, and in this video I'll be breaking down and reviewing the 7th episode of the first season of the Fallout TV show titled The Radio. Obviously there will be spoilers for episode 7, but there might also be spoilers for future episodes. Now let's begin. Point number 1, the classic NCR Ranger armor. I assume the reason Adam has several sets of the armor is either because he scavenged them, or because he used to be an NCR Ranger, which sounds plausible considering Cooper says he probably still has some of Adam's lead in him. Point number 2, while there are influences throughout this show from the 1966 movie The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, this scene between Adam and Cooper seems to be almost a direct reference. In The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, the situation is slightly reversed with Angel Eyes, the bad, walking in on Stevens and his family eating compared to Adam and Tommy walking in on Cooper eating. Angel Eyes interrogates Stevens for a name rather than a location, and it's Stevens, the father, who gets shot, then a son, rather than just the son, i.e. Tommy, though both Stevens and Tommy do reach for their guns first before being shot by Angel Eyes / Cooper. Point number 3, in the Vault-Tec advertisement at the start of the previous episode, we see Lloyd and Cassandra Hawthorne sitting at a table with 2 kids. Since they're nowhere to be seen in the holotape Ben and Birdie show Lucy, that either means they know their kids are safe and won't be hurt by the Vault 4 test subjects, or that the kids we saw in the advertisements weren't actually their kids at all, but just actors. In any case, the Hawthorns are fucking dead, son. Point number 4, Ben says the gulper we see in the holotape was his great uncle Peter on his mum's side. Was this one of the gulpers we saw a woman giving birth to then getting eaten by in the holotape Lucy watched at the end of the last episode? Could it have been the one we saw floating in a tank that Lucy walks past before discovering that holotape? Or, given how coincidence plays such a big part in this show, with characters bumping into each other and such, could the gulper that swallowed Wilsig's head and attacked Lucy, Thaddeus and Maximus in episode 3 be Great Uncle Peter? Point number 5, the experiment of this vault hybridizing humans with radioactive resistant species explains why the gulpers we've seen all have had human finger-like appendages in their mouths and very human-like eyes. They're the result of hybridizing humans with, I assume, axolotls. Point number 6, I like to think with how Thaddeus went back to make sure Thor could breathe whilst in the Nuka-Cola box, that he would have returned to free Thor as soon as he was able to, and he wouldn't just leave her in there to starve to death. Point number 7, I just love this subversion of what you're expecting to happen here to Lucy, that she's going to be executed, when the entire time she's been down in Vault 4 has been proof that they abhor violence, they all live together happily, they care for the test subjects down in level 12, they took in refugees and also Lucy and Maximus and gave them aid. Like, obviously there was no way Lucy was going to die here, but you might have thought that at the last minute Maximus would show up in his power armor and save her. But if you've actually paid attention, you know immediately she's in no danger whatsoever, because there's no way anyone in Vault 4 would actually execute someone, let alone watch. Point number 8.
Without the fusion core, this armor is useless. I can't be a knight.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
Point number 9.
If my dad found out that I destroyed an entire community to save him, that'd break his heart.
Megaton destroyed? You? You didn't have anything to do with that, did you?
Yes.
I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I am. That goes against everything I ever taught you.
Point number 10, so unlike fusion cores in the games where you're able to find a bunch of them but they don't last very long, in the show they appear to be a lot rarer but last quite a long time. How they are shown to work in the games though comes down to it just being a gameplay mechanic, so that you can't just use your power armor 24/7. Either that or power armor in the games is just incredibly energy inefficient. It would have been funny as well if it turned out Lucy and Maximus didn't even have to return the fusion core because Vault 4 had multiple of them, which would make sense to me unless the show's saying fusion cores last for like 1,000 years before they're depleted. Then again, Vault 33's water chip, a very vital piece of equipment needed to keep the people inside the vault alive, broke and they didn't have a spare readily on hand, so maybe Vault 4 only having one fusion core isn't too much of a stretch. Point number 11, so because of all the bullshit sidetracking Lucy since she cut off Wilsig's head at LAX, the 6 to 7 hour walk it should have taken her to get from there to Griffith Observatory has instead taken her at least 2 weeks. I would say talk about taking your time, but of course it isn't Lucy's fault. Point number 12, I'm glad Maximus finally decided to tell Lucy the truth and not keep picking the lie option all the time. A relationship built on lies has a weak foundation after all. Point number 13, DJ Carl at KPSS playing fiddle music reminds me of Agatha from Fallout 3, who would play classical music over the radio, though she would play pre-recordings of herself playing the violin rather than records of fiddle playing like Carl does. Point number 14, I believe it was Betty who had the New California Raiders poisoned since they'd fulfilled their purpose, along with the failure of the Vault's water chip in getting Betty elected Overseer. Yep, you heard me correctly. I think the water chip was made to intentionally break and was going to always have broken to pave the way for someone else to have been made Overseer. I don't think it was originally going to break anytime soon, but since Hank had been kidnapped, the residents of Vault 33, originally from Vault 31, most likely moved up the date of when the water chip would fail to create a crisis necessitating the need for a new Overseer to be elected. Why they couldn't have just used the already existing crisis of no longer having an Overseer because Hank had been kidnapped, I don't know, but I can guess that maybe they thought they needed a little extra crisis to ensure Betty would be elected and not Reg or Woody, because after all,
when things look glum, vote 31.
Also, on the topic of the water chip, I don't actually think it's as much of a catastrophe as it seems to be, since Vault 32 presumably still has a functioning water chip, and Vault 31 most likely has spares to ensure if any of the water chips legit did unexpectedly break, they wouldn't have to resort to a Fallout 1 style situation. Point number 15, tying the past to the present again, Ghoul Cooper has ended up back at Hollywood Forever, the place where he met Moldava pre-war, and isn't too far away from where she currently lives post-war, Griffith Observatory. Point number 16, I wonder why Cooper chooses to call Ford dog meat, but then I also wonder why any of the dogs in the other Fallout games also have the name dog meat. Maybe it's just a common name for dogs in the post-war world. Point number 17, this is why I love Thaddeus' character and why I don't actually believe he left 4 in that box to die. Sure, he can be an asshole sometimes, like with Maximus at the Brotherhood base, but he gives a reason for that. But other times, he just tries to get on well with people. He doesn't seem to actually be that much of a fan of the music Carl is playing, but he thanks the guy for letting him use his radio, agrees with him on everything when talking about the music, and then even goes on and compliments him on all of his traps. And one of those traps is just a giant mouse trap, which is just mwah. My compliments to the chef as well. Point number 18, I guess Thaddeus' game glitched and gave him 0% chance to hit on all of Lucy and Maximus's limbs. Point number 19, so just like how his foot healed up pretty good, Thaddeus here gets an arrow in the neck but doesn't die, pulls it out and it heals almost instantly. Maximus guesses that Thaddeus might now be a ghoul, but I wonder if he's correct about that. Sure, the liquid the chicken fucker gives Thaddeus looks similar to what Cooper takes, but Cooper takes it to not become feral, to not become more of a ghoul. So surely, if it's meant to ensure someone doesn't become more of a ghoul, it shouldn't turn someone who already isn't a ghoul into one, right? However, while we haven't really seen ghouls regenerate in the games, they are known to heal at a greater rate than non-ghouls, especially when around radiation. Plus we hear from Patches in Fallout 3, and we see with Cooper in the previous episode, that reattaching lost body parts is a pretty simple thing for ghouls to do, since Cooper reattaches his finger using only a needle and thread, and it becomes fully functional again. And Patches also lost a finger once, but had a doctor reattach it to him. There are those though who take Thaddeus' regenerative abilities to mean he hasn't turned into a ghoul, but instead into a super mutant. That's what the chicken fucker gave him, was some form of FEV, Forced Evolutionary Virus. This would be a much different way of turning someone into a super mutant than what has previously been established, which is to submerge someone into a big vat of the bubbling green FEV goo. So I think Thaddeus now being a ghoul is more likely than him now being a super mutant. What do you guys think? Point number 20, just something I noticed, no idea if it means anything, but when we saw Davey get his assignment to Vault 32, he's ecstatic about it, and then when he and the others head into Vault 32, he's the only person from what I can see that isn't carrying anything. I mean, even Woody, who decides he's not going, has like a small case with him. So what? Did Davey just have like absolutely nothing he wanted to take with him to start his new life as a resident of Vault 32? Point 21, while it's awesome to see the hacking minigame, it's a shame Nom guessed it on the first try. I would have preferred it if the words for him to choose from had been pretty long, and he got it wrong 3 times but then managed to clinch it on the last. Maybe he could have also thrown in a couple of matching brackets to get rid of some duds. Then again, Norm seems to be the type of character that's specced into all of the brainy, special, skilled traits and perk options rather than the brawny options, so the hacking giving him short words and not many to choose from does still make sense. To round all this off, my most disliked part of the episode goes to what I was just talking about with the whole Norm guessing the right word in the hacking minigame on the first try thing. like he could just somehow see which word was the right one, even though there's no way to know without guessing or just getting lucky. And my most liked part of the episode goes to the interaction between the chicken fucker and Thaddeus, especially when the chicken fucker says the line,
"That's the sound of your lower intestine falling right the fuck out."
Thank you all so much for tuning into the Triple S Variety channel. To not miss a video, be sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and why not leave a comment below pointing out anything I missed but you noticed. I would love to hear from you all. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.